Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's presentation as part of the Industry Insight webinar series. The topic this time is top billing mistakes attorneys make and how to fix them. Speaking today will be Myrna Johns of TABS 3. Myrna is a TABS 3 and Practice Master expert and software technologies primary trainer. A longtime resident of Lincoln, Nebraska, Myrna has been an employee of Software Technology, Inc., the maker of TABS 3 and Practice Master, for more than 20 years. Myrna has held more than 700 training sessions, including one-on-one training, classroom training, and web-based training. The presentation today will be followed by a Q&A. Please enter your questions into the question box in the webinar panel on the right side of your screen. All questions will be addressed at the end of the presentation. We are recording this webinar and we will be sending a video and a follow-up email in a few days. We'll also post the video on our blog at www.lawtechnologytoday.org. Thank you all for joining us. We'll now begin the webinar.
Thank you for that introduction. Today we're going to talk about the top billing mistakes attorneys make and how to fix them. I myself have found that the attorneys that I meet on a day-to-day basis are intelligent, hardworking individuals who put a lot of effort into avoiding mistakes in their law practice. Let's face it, no one wants to face a malpractice lawsuit. But malpractice mistakes are not the only mistakes that you need to avoid. Today we're going to cover 4 billing mistakes that attorneys make and how you can avoid making those mistakes, starting with the first part of the billing cycle and moving forward through the end. The first mistake that we're going to discuss is inaccurate timekeeping. When you guess how much time you spent on a task or when cases you are working on, you're more likely to make a mistake when entering your time. Inaccurate timekeeping can lead to missing time. Even when you have the best practices in place, the best of us will miss some time here or there, and I'm going to show you how you can search for and find that missing time. Although I have listed it third, probably the most common situation I run into is tardy invoicing. Getting bills out the door is key to getting money back in your pocket. And then the final mistake that we're going to discuss today is avoiding accounts receivables. Very few people like to actually call a client about a delinquent account. We're going to go and cover a few ways that can make managing your accounts receivables a little bit easier. So as I indicated, inaccurate timekeeping is one of the mistakes that attorneys make. Some attorneys wait until the end of the day, week, or month to enter their time and have to guess about the time that they enter. I've run into even more than one firm that bills their time only when they start to run out of money. Their staff is very frustrated about that, and it's not an effective way to run their business. So what are some ways that you can avoid this mistake? A great way to avoid inaccurate time entry is to enter the time as you work. Think back to what you were doing Monday at this time. Perhaps you were on the phone. If you were speaking to someone you like, such as your mother, a friend, or one of your favorite clients, you're more likely to underestimate the time that it took to complete the call. If you spent time speaking to someone annoying, maybe an angry client, an obnoxious salesperson, it may have seemed to take longer. In many instances, attorneys will undercut their own estimates in an attempt to avoid overcharging their clients. So one of the best ways we can handle this is to make sure that we enter our time as we work. Entering the time as you work makes you more confident that the time is accurate, reduces the missed time, and most attorneys find that billable hours are increased when that time is entered. In fact, an article in Solo Practice University pointed out that just waiting until the end of the day can cause attorneys to miss 10 to 15% of their billable time. So if you're billing only 4 hours a day, 10% could add up to 4/10 of an hour each day and over 100 hours a year. At a measly $100 an hour, that can add up to $10,000 additional that you could be billing each year. So what are some ways we can accurately track our time? One way to be more accurate is to use timers. In TABS 3 billing software, we have the ability to track each fee with a timer. Simply click on the green arrow and the timer starts. When using the timer, we can also see the time increase, the value, and the value of the transaction that you're working on as that time is going up. So think about that client who's concerned about the cost of their case and you're on the phone and they're arguing with you and you're watching the time tick up. You can tell them exactly how much they are costing themselves right at this very moment because you have that information in front of you. So this may help to remind them how much just this call is costing them, let alone fining for something just to spite their spouse. In Practice Master, we have another way to view timers. Many of my clients like to see all of their tasks going on and track each of the projects that they're working on. Starting the timer on one item will stop the timer on the previous item so you don't double bill. Even if your firm uses alternative fees, you can use the timer function as a way to keep track of the work that you do as you're doing it. Since this information is recorded to the client's file at the same time, you and others in the firm can see what work has been done on the case. Additionally, this information will be beneficial in the event that you need to try to collect fees through the court at the end of the case. You can also find other third-party products that will work with tabs 3 that help you track how much time you spend on individual tasks. Another way to make timekeeping accurate is to use the tools that you have available. There are many tools available today to make your data entry easier and more efficient. One of these tools is a macro. Like pressing a button, a macro will perform an additional step after you press it. In tabs 3, we can type an abbreviation and have it expand into words based on the macro that you create. This can do two things. It makes transaction entry faster because you have less to type. And it helps your firm have a consistent description throughout the firm so that others can help explain an item on a bill. For example, here in a fee entry in tabs 3, we see the letters TDS highlighted in blue. When I press enter after typing TDS or the space bar, depending on what I want to do after this, then it's going to expand to discuss current status and issues relating to the case. While we have this feature automatically built into tabs 3 and Practice Master, there are also third-party apps and programs that are available for you to do the same thing. Another tool that can be used to help get your time in fast and ensure that you keep accurate time is a convert to fee feature like the one available in Practice Master. You already have to type a document and save it, or type a calendar entry so that you know what is on your schedule. Using simple convert to fee features means that you reuse the work that you have already done, and you don't have to take time to retype your notes when entering a fee. For example, firms that use Practice Master can simply click the Convert to Fee button here in the Matter Manager to take the work that was completed and convert it into a fee with a single click. Since everything you do for a case is in the Matter Manager, this also helps you identify any unconverted entries based on the missing timer. And what about when you're working with other software products outside of tabs 3 and Practice Master? In Practice Master, we have the ability to create records and convert items to fees for many popular products. For example, if I prepare a motion in Microsoft Word, we can bill for the motion with just a click. Or when we send an email, we can bill for it with just a click. And of course, the calendar records in Practice Master can be converted quickly as well. You already had to enter something into your calendar so you don't miss your meeting. Why not take that work and convert it to a fee? And then there are times when you're out of the office. Being out of the office doesn't mean that you're not working. At court, meeting with a client, and any time that you're not in your office, you should be entering your time in as you perform the work. A tabs 3 Platinum user can simply open up tabs 3 Connect and enter the fee while they're at the courthouse, before pulling out of the parking lot from that meeting at the client's office, or any time that they're not in their office doing work. By doing that data entry when the memory is fresh, you more accurately reflect exactly what occurred. Additionally, if you, like me, are slow when using your tablet or phone to type, you can use the Google Voice or whatever feature you have to speak your description. I have Galaxy S6, and I really love to demonstrate using that when I'm working with local clients. Just recently, I was at a law firm demonstrating this feature. I clicked the little microphone, and the attorney started asking what was going on, and his words started displaying right in that description. My experience is that even complex words are accurate if you enunciate clearly. The next mistake that I see attorneys make is not finding all of their missing time. Even with the best timekeeping practices, there are times that you may slip up and miss some of the time entries that should have been made. When you review the pre-bills or pro formas or whatever your firm chooses to review, you may be looking for missing work on a case-by-case basis, but how about the work that you do each day? Good software, like Tabs 3, will have features that help you find missing time. The recap of hours report in Tabs 3 is one of my favorites. If you look closely, you can see that some of these days have hours shaded. These are days with less than a number that we specify. In this case, I chose 6 hours. If I hover over these items, they're highlighted yellow. And then further, when I click on any of those items, you can see that it will pull up a list of the items on that particular day. So I can take a look and determine if there was something else that was missing when I have less than the time I expected in. I may remember that I had a call come in while I was writing the letter to Mr. Williams and add that as a new entry. Or I might remember that I left Mr. Phillips' office and went to a CLE session in the hotel next door. Another feature that I love that we happen to have in Practice Master is a visual timer display that allows me to see the gaps in my timer records and then know where I might be missing time on that particular day. Here, for example, our attorney may have had a long business lunch, and perhaps they were rainmaking to get a few new clients. Or perhaps the attorney was attending an online class like the one you're attending today. While it isn't noted here, you can also enter timers and track time spent on non-billable tasks so that you know that you're not missing time because you were working on something that you simply can't bill for. Once you know that you're missing time, you can then look at your calendar to see what you were working on for that specific day and look in your client's files to see if there was time that was not billed. For example, here in the Practice Master Matter Manager, I can see which entries are unconverted and easily convert them to a fee using the features we discussed earlier. Another option might be to use third-party applications like Chrometa or iTimekeep to track how you spend your time on your computer and then use that list of time to find any time that is missing that needs to be converted into a fee. As I mentioned before, probably the top mistake that I see attorneys make is tardy invoicing. In many firms, it is just 1 or 2 attorneys who don't have all their time in at the end of the month. Now that the attorney is wasting time, they're trying to quickly review what they did for the last month, and then they're entering time by memory. As we pointed out, they're probably undercutting the work that they actually did because they didn't enter that time in the first place. Sometimes the rest of the staff is ready to start billing the next month, and the previous one has not yet been completed. This can cause problems when reviewing drafts or portfolios or looking at reports. Just last week, I was at a firm where 2 of the attorneys were frustrated because they get paid based on their receipts, and some of their time hadn't been billed because one partner didn't have his time entered yet. Additionally, clients can become confused when they get bills that are only a couple weeks apart, or when their bills sometimes come with 1 month, sometimes they come with 2 months worth of work. I'm sure that many of you have heard of attorney Jay Foonberg. He's the author of How to Start and Build a Law Practice. One of the features I liked best from his book is called The Client's Curve of Gratitude. He researched why clients are often reluctant to pay their bills. He found that the further you get from the time the work was completed, the more the client forgets the effort involved in that case. Sometimes, clients even think they could have done the work themselves better and for less money. This is especially true when the case is not a clear winner. You may have saved them a lot of money by settling out of court, but they still had to pay, which they didn't like. Then they look at your bill and determine it isn't worth the dollar amount on that bill. They figure they could have done the same work and gotten the same result as you did because you made it look so easy. We all know it wasn't as easy as you made it look. I have found that some insurance companies who provide malpractice insurance to their clients even have clauses that prohibit or strongly discourage law firms they represent from sending a client to court on an outstanding bill simply because those clients are more likely to file a malpractice suit just to get out of paying those fees, which is a reason to make sure that you get your bills out on time. So what are some strategies that we can use? The firms that I find that are most successful at getting bills out the door are firms that set a schedule and keep it. Many of my local firms are able to get their bills out the door within the first 5 business days of the month by requiring that all time be entered by 10 a.m. on the first day of the month. And the way they can do that is they basically require all time from the previous day to be entered by 10 a.m. the next day. So attorneys know that they've got that in front of them and they're getting that time in. Checking it weekly is one way that you can make sure that they're keeping up to date on that. Once they have those bills out by 10 a.m., then they can get their pre-bills run and have them out by noon. For many of these firms, the pre-bills have to be reviewed and returned within 1 business day so that bills can be corrected and out the door in a very short time. Just setting deadlines may not be enough, however. You must have consequences in place or the deadlines will not work. I have seen some successful firms have fines to make sure the bills get out. With the money for attorneys that don't get their time in by 10 a.m. on the first business day of the month, going into a fund, and then that fund is used to buy lunch or give something to the staff who ends up having to work extra hard to get those bills out the door when that time's not in, instead of just rolling back into partner bonuses. Other firms simply keep to the deadlines, and if your time's not in, it doesn't get on the client's bill, and then that attorney doesn't get paid for their work. Imagine having to explain to a client why some attorneys have nothing to bill when the client got a bill from one of the firm's other attorneys just that month. In addition to setting a schedule, you have to make sure that the staff is aware of the schedule you create and make sure that those deadlines are easy to see and easy to find. And you can use the software tools that are available to also make that job easier. For example, use tools in Practice Master to schedule deadlines. Here you can see an example of Practice Master's calendar plan template, which can calculate the deadlines around holidays and weekends and put that information on the calendar so the entire staff knows when their work must be done. And if you have an attorney who won't use the Practice Master calendar, integration with Outlook means that these deadlines can be placed into Outlook too, including alarms that can pop up reminding the attorneys to enter their time. When the information is on the calendar for everyone to see, the entire staff can work towards meeting the deadlines that you set. Another way that makes it easy to get those bills out the door is to ensure that the billing staff has their own tools to make their job easier. For example, a tool that I love in Tabs 3 is the ability to run reports together in suites. I can define criteria for several different statement runs and or reports and then run all of my pre-bills at one time. I simply select the group I need to run and then select to print. I can even go out to lunch on a billing day because the system does all the work while I'm out of the office. Additionally, if a billing person needs to take time off on a day that you typically run pre-bills, instead of having this long 10-page document of how to get those bills out the door, you simply tell them, go to the report suites, select my pre-bills, and then click run. And it's really just a few steps away to get those printed out without a lot of effort going in. Speaking about getting the bills out the door, once the review is complete and corrections are made, one of the easiest ways to get them out the door fast is to email those statements to your client. In Tabs 3, we can configure clients to receive bills by mail, email, or both. You simply run your statements as normal and then go to the email statements program to review them and press send to send them on their way. One of my clients, Rachel, went from 2 days to get hundreds of bills out the door to getting them out in less than an hour using this feature. Now, some people prefer to work one-on-one with their emails, and if you prefer a little individual control, You can pull up each statement one at a time to verify the information, and then simply click the send button, the reviewed button, and then the send button to get that email out the door. I had a client who was reluctant to switch to email bills a few years ago. In the end, she was very happy that their firm did. According to Tracy, the payments come in much faster, but so do the questions. However, it's fresher in our minds, and it's a lot easier to respond to those questions right away, so that makes it even better. Tracy also found that they were saving hundreds of dollars on postage and printing costs just related to their bills. One of the things I like about the individual settings in the email is I can optionally pull information from the client's bill so they know what to pay. As somebody who uses my online banking a lot, I like to see those numbers in my bill, in my email, because then I can simply highlight that number and put that number in, or I can just pop into my little app on my phone and type in that number really fast, and my bill, my payment gets out the door very quickly. A lot faster when I get that information in the email than if I have to drill down and look at an attachment and review things to get that information out. Finally, the last mistake that we want to talk about today is attorneys who avoid their accounts receivables. AR happens. Even when you get the bills right out the door, there are going to be clients that are going to put off paying as long as possible. It might be due to a temporary shortage of funds or simply an oversight on the part of the client, but there are things that we can do to reduce the pain of AR. Billing your clients in advance is one way to avoid AR because, of course, you already have the money, especially if you practice a form of law where clients become more reluctant after the end of the case and the initial deadlines are not as critical, such as a divorce. Having that money up front is a good indication that they're capable of paying for your services and that they recognize how much they're going to have to spend. Of course, you will want to ensure that the money you receive is properly managed in your IOLTA account. Good software like Tabs 3 Trust Accounting will track individual account balances as well as the balances of your combined IOLTA account, so you don't have to worry about commingling funds. Even better, you can create that transaction for the payment as soon as your check is run. So if your clients don't pay you in advance, you want to track how much they owe you and follow up on those past due amounts. Before I started working with Tabs 3 years ago, I used to work for a collection agency. Identifying clients who have past due amounts and following up with them is a critical component to collecting. One of the things we used to do is we used to run an accounts receivable report, and we used to track exactly how much money they owed and follow up on them. So here's an example of something that we can do monthly that's going to show us how we can keep track of those collection figures by letting us put in how far past due the amount is and how many days since the last payment. So here you can see it's been 4 months since the client owed us anything, 90 days since they've paid anything. Let's go out to Tabs 3. And here I'm going to go ahead and talk about some of the things that we can do to find some of that money that's past due. So I added my collections report right here on the screen because you can customize that screen easily. And I'm just going to go ahead and load my seriously delinquent accounts report so that I can get that information from my client. And so here I'm looking for clients that are 90 days past due and have had no payments in the last 90 days. I get to choose different settings so that I can see what's on here. And then I simply go ahead and run the report to my screen. Looking at the items on my screen, I can see not only how much my client owes, but when their bills were run, the age of those bills, so it gives me a little bit more history, if they've paid a part of those bills, if I've written off anything, when my payments were received, and all of my contact information. As a collector, I know that having that information right at your fingertips makes it a lot easier if you don't have to go into 5 different places to find what you need. When I do get my client on the phone, or maybe I don't have them on the phone, I'm just going to note that I made a phone call, I can drill down and come in here, and I'm just going to put in a couple blank lines because I like to have my top item at the top. press the F5 key and it puts in exactly the time that I'm at, and then put in a note about what I did. And there I also used a macro so that you can see how easily that time is going in, that note is going in, and I can refresh that information and keep track of all the work that's being done. Okay. With the refresh button, I now can get a report when I'm done that shows all of the collection efforts that I made. In the event that you ever do take a client to court to follow up with them, having track of those collection efforts is going to be critical to your success in making sure that you can prove that the client was aware of that debt, or at the very least, that you made the client as aware as possible about that debt. And of course, then, the next thing that we want to talk about with our payments, other than tracking that accounts receivable, is making sure that getting paid is easy. Once you have your client on the phone to discuss those past amounts, if you can get your payment in by credit card, you can get that payment in easy. And we don't even just have to do credit cards. So we're going to talk about that here in a second. But having a way to get your client's payment when you're talking with them makes it a lot easier for them. With tabs 3 and ProPay, we have a secure and fast way of entering information into tabs 3 for your payments. You can be prompted to automatically enter card information, use a card reader to collect that information, or even enter information to accept a check by phone. As soon as you press submit, you're going to go ahead and process everything through. So here you can see I can add a new card, I can do a new e-check or do a new bank account. And that e-check, this is one of my favorite features. All you have to do is get the information on their check, and that's their routing number, which is the 9-digit number that identifies the bank that they're from, and then their bank account number. And once you get that information, you can submit directly to the bank, press the submit button, and then the payment is processed right away. Your client doesn't have to write a check. Your client doesn't have to take that check and set it up front by the TV and ignore it for 3 weeks, or take that check down to the mailbox and they get distracted in the meantime. All of that is being missed because you're putting this in, and the cost of putting in that e-check is only 50 cents. That's really less than it's going to cost your client to mail that check, because they have to pay for an envelope, and a stamp, a single first-class stamp, is going to be 49 cents itself. So it's very easy to get that information in. Tab 3 Trust Accounting also has the ability to accept those credit card payments directly into the IOLTA account, so that if you are doing that to not only accept funds for your client, you can also do that to keep track of those funds and to make sure that they're getting deposited to the IOLTA account. So you can set up 2 different accounts, one for your firm, one for your IOLTA account, and chargebacks and charges to your account can all be set to go directly to your operating account instead of to your trust account, so that you can comply with your state bar regulations. And I know ProPay is one company that can do this. I know there are other companies that can do this, so that you can make it super easy to go ahead and accept those credit cards. And it really is a very, very small amount that you pay to make it super easy for your clients to get their payments in the door and to help you out. So now, as a review, let's go ahead and go back over those common mistakes. The first mistake that we had was inaccurate timekeeping. And to avoid that, you can make sure that you enter your time as you work. An easy way to do that is to use a timer feature. Additionally, you can use software tools like macros, convert to fees, and for tabs 3 users, the tabs 3 Connect or other remote data entry features for when you're out of the office. If you need to find missing time, you can do that using reports in your software, like the Recap of Hours report in tabs 3. View your calendar to review what you did that day. You can check your visual timer display in Practice Master. Check your email or use products like iTimekeep or Prometa to track how you spend your day. And then finally, not finally, there's another one after that. To help with on-time invoicing, you want to make sure that you set a schedule and keep it, which you can do easily by putting that in the firm's calendar. Use tools like report suites to make tasks like printing pre-bills easier and get those bills out the door fast by emailing those bills out so that the payments come in faster. And then finally, manage your accounts receivable and prevent clients from getting behind in the first place by using a retainer. For clients that do get behind, be sure to regularly track accounts receivable using efficient reports, and don't forget to track collection calls. Finally, when you have a client on the phone, make getting paid easier by accepting credit cards. So now you've seen the top billing mistakes that attorneys make and how you can avoid them.